So in terms of rhythm, when we listen to the video clip again and we're paying attention to the beat of her words and her phrases, we notice that she uses a stress-timed rhythm during most of her speech, where she correctly stresses content words and does not add stress to functional words. So for example, she states, "I'm from Germany, I'm 17 years old, and I'm still going to school," emphasizing the content words such as Germany, years, going, still, and school, which you can see are content words because they're nouns, verbs, and adverbs. And then I continue to say the functional words in this phrase, I'm, from, and to, are not emphasized. And if you wanted to, you could include there saying, these are articles, prepositions, and conjunctions. So here's an example of the way that you would talk about rhythm using your terminology like stress timing and content words, functional words. Give me examples of those. Okay, the next category in the accomplishments of this German girl is the word stress. And again, you would play the video clip one more time, listening now for two things. First, if she's able to say multisyllabic words, stressing the correct syllable, and B, if she's able to, or if she stresses particular words in the context of a phrase in order to give a particular meaning. So let me show you what I wrote and what you, in turn, would be writing. She emphasized the stress on spoke that fast, and fast in particular, to highlight her meaning and enforce her negative feelings around the speed at which the Americans spoke in Alabama. And this is towards the end of the video clip. I did not play the full video clip, but you're certainly, I certainly welcome you to do so. The link will be featured on that previous slide, and so you can click on that and listen to the whole thing. She also appropriately stresses many multisyllabic words, for example, impossible, where the second syllable is stressed, understand, where the final syllable is stressed. And again, because your oral language analyses will be much more comprehensive, you would have many more examples here and talk through them. Okay, so same thing. We go through, and now we're trying to listen for the consonants that she correctly pronounces. Okay, and these would be individual phonemes. So what you're listening for are the same, focus on, pick a few of the same consonants and listen to her as she's able to pronounce them in the different positions, right? In initial, in medial, and final position. So this is what I would write once I've done that. She's able to pronounce a number of voiced and voiceless consonants appropriately. For example, she is able to state the following voiced consonants appropriately in different positions. The voiced vela stop, g, in girl, English, and visiting. And notice how I am showing that g phoneme in the different positions, right? Initial, medial, and final. For example, she is also able to state the following voiceless consonants appropriately in different positions. The voiceless alveolar stop in today, still, and want. I'm sorry, if this is actually a small error. So instead of highlighting the W, I would be highlighting the T, because that's the voiceless alveolar stop that I'm interested in showcasing to you. The other thing that I want you to pay attention to is the terminology that you've used here, the voiced velar stop, or the voiceless alveolar stop, in describing the type of phoneme. Okay, and then you would go and do the same with the vowels and see how she's articulating the vowels. And after doing that, it would look like something like this. She is able to pronounce a number of vowels and distinguish them from each other. This includes I in the initial position as in English, I in the initial, medial, and final positions as in I, hi, guys, and O as in old. And this, what should be written here would be initial position. Okay, so now let's go to the challenges of the individual, which is the second part of the table that you have to fill out. And now what we're doing is we're still looking for those 5 aspects, right? Intonation, rhythm, word stress, consonant, and vowel articulation. But what you're trying to look for now are phonemes or intonation, rhythm, word stress that she does inappropriately. So once again, you would listen through and try to find, in terms of the intonation, it would be the melody, and any time that her intonation is incorrect. And so it might look like something like this. There are times when she uses rising intonation for statements that she is sure about, and which would require the use of rising falling intonation, such as when she states, "Today I want to ask you how you think my English is." So although I just read that with a falling intonation, if you listen to the video again, she actually says it with a rising intonation, as if she was asking a question. But you can see in the way that it's phrased, that it's actually phrased as a sentence, as a statement. This would require rising falling intonation because it is phrased in a statement form. So notice how I describe why it's wrong, right? So I start with telling the person the inappropriate sort of mistake she's made. I provide an example, and then I describe why this is an example of something inappropriate. Let's look at rhythm. Remember, rhythm is the beat, right? Stress timing versus syllable timing. She seldom uses a syllable-timed rhythm during her speech. However, there is one part where she puts equal emphasis on every word in a phrase, which contains both content and function words. For example, she states, "I want to know about how my English is." So in the first part of the sentence, she stresses each of the bolded words equally, meaning that she's using a syllable timing rhythm in that part. And I would include that. I would use the term syllable timing rhythm. However, towards the end of the sentence, she begins to switch to stress timing and emphasizes English more than the function words my. Okay. Then we go to word stress, and that's talking about the stress we put on multisyllabic words in terms of which syllables is emphasized, or the stress that we put on words in the context of a phrase, either appropriately or inappropriately. So after listening for those two things, you would write your analysis something like this. She is able to put the stress on the correct syllable of every multisyllabic word. She does not seem to have any challenges in this category, even on words that could be potentially difficult for ELLs, such as understand, impossible, English, grammar, pronunciation, and 17. And so here you can see that actually she does pretty well in word stress, and there are no errors. And if that's the case with your ELL sample, that's fine. It's just that you need to justify that by providing examples of what she does right, as I've done here. Okay. Then we look at consonant articulation, and what we're looking for are phonemes, consonant phonemes that she might say inappropriately, right? And again, remember, with individual phonemes, we are paying attention to their position. So you always want to use terminology to describe the phoneme, right? So if it's a voiceless alveolar stop, you also want to tell me the position in which the person is able to say it or not able to say it. So let's look at what that might look like. She pronounces the alveolar fricative r in medial position as the German r, which is not used in English. She does this in the word normal. So instead of saying normal, she goes normal. She also has difficulty pronouncing the voiceless interdental fricative th in initial position, such as when she says 3, which sounds like tree, where she substitutes the th for the voiceless interdental stop t. Okay. So again, notice how I'm using my terminology, voiceless interdental fricative. Notice how I'm listing the IPA, right, the symbol in the International Phonetic Alphabet for you. And I'm also providing examples of the words that she's having difficulty saying and the position in those words. You do the same thing for vowels. Okay, you'd go through and listen to the vowels that are appropriately or inappropriately stated. And it would look something like this once you write it up. There are several vowels that she has challenges to pronounce appropriately. For example, she states the word school, but she pronounces the medial U sound as the German Ü, which is not used in English. So instead of saying school, you can hear her in the video say Skul. And that is from the Ü, the German Ü, which in English we don't have. She also pronounces pronunciation incorrectly by leaving out the medial E vowel in the fourth syllable of pronunciation, so that it sounds like pronunciation. And then here's another one. While most of her words are pronounced using the American accent, she seems to pronounce most of her medial a phonemes as the medial a phonemes as American medial a phonemes, but not in the word fast, which she pronounces as fast instead of the American fast, right? So you can hear that throughout the video she's predominantly using an American accent, using that a sound, which in a British English is ah. So instead of saying fast, she says fast, ah. Okay. And then the last portion of your analysis includes a more sort of comprehensive description about why these errors were made. And what you need to do for this is look at Avery and Ulrich, the 1996 article, which lists the difficulties that different speakers of different languages have with English. One of the sections of that article talks about German speakers in particular, and they'll have these errors that you've probably picked up on. So what I want you to do is choose the most predominant errors from your analysis. So I've chosen 3 based on what I've done, but I would suggest that you choose 5 to 6 and provide a more comprehensive description about why those particular errors are made by this particular ELL and their background language. So I would choose to talk about the rising intonation with statements, because she does that quite frequently, right? Those statements that should be sort of that she's very definite on, that should be falling intonations, she actually uses that question rising intonation past and full. So you would talk about this. I've also chosen the th phoneme, and in particular in initial position, and I would talk through this. And then lastly the r phoneme, which she goes r for. And that's particularly to German. So here you would use that article, you would describe to me why the issue is important to correct, how the issue comes about, sort of what is the first language influences that might be at play here to make this a particularly hard phoneme or phonological aspect for this ELL. And then providing an explanation about why this issue happens. In your Blackboard, you're going to find an exemplar of this analysis, so you can definitely look at that. You can also refer to the analysis that I've modeled here for you. And then in our next session, I'm going to lead you through another clip of an ELL, and I'm going to help you establish the steps that you take to conduct this analysis and write it up. Okay, so let's review our lesson. Hopefully you were able to identify the universal properties of human language at this point. I would also hope that you can define and identify phonemes, as well as distinguish consonants from vowels. Talk about the different ways in which we distinguish consonant sounds from each other in terms of placement, manner, and voicing. And I would like you to be able to determine or distinguish word stress, rhythm, intonation, and also the articulation of consonants and vowels. And you should be able to use your terminology, which we've been discussing, and also you can use that website that I showed you that presents that terminology to you in the different phonemes. So that sort of is the lesson for today. You're going to be applying all of these concepts that you've learned today in our next session, where you will be doing a workshop and analyzing an ELL's oral language sample.